Hey guys, how you doing? Today I want to do something a little bit different and just tell you guys a story about my personal sort of K4 Black Swan event. Very stressful time in my business, and it's a long story. And the reason why I'm telling it is a few reasons. I mean, one, I think a lot of people nowadays are hoping that they can make a lot of money very quickly, and then it's very easy to become wealthy by making the one right investment or doing this thing. And when I was a kid, I wanted that. I thought that was what I wanted, was like to get rich quick. And in the end, I mean, now that I'm 41 and have lived a lot of life and tried a bunch of different things, and I'm starting to see a little bit of success, I wouldn't want it any other way. At the time, I was doing a podcast where I was talking to small business owners that I knew or was introduced to, and hearing their stories about, what they went through, how they got to where they got to, depending on their age and what part of their business they were in. And there's always a part of the story that was like a hell for that business owner. And this one is that I'm going to talk about today is mine. The other reason I want to talk about it is because Sean and Ryan and I are starting a new channel right away called Stand Up Economists. We'll put a link as soon as the channel's up. And one of the first videos that I want to talk about is how sort of I initially fell in love with the company Wealthsimple. And since they have changed for a number of reasons, I no longer really would want to recommend them to anybody. So I'm going to talk about sort of my story with them in that a little bit more in depth, and then what they've done since then. So I started K4 in 2016 all by myself with a really bad camera in the spare bedroom of our first house, and just had a little bit of an idea that maybe people could use more financial education, and I was going to talk about it and see how it went and hope that I could get some clients from it. And it worked. It did work from the very beginning. I was getting a lot of leads. I was closing a lot of new clients. Things were growing great. And the company that I was sending all my clients to for asset management was Wealthsimple. I chose Wealthsimple because at the time in the robo-advisor world, they were easily the most well-known. They were very easy to use, and I absolutely loved them. They were great. The clients were happy with the onboarding process, all of these things. They kept adding in new sort of things that were helpful for clients to save money, younger people to round up their money into investments, all of these different things. And it was 4 years, honestly, and I've thought about this before, out of the first 4 years I had in business in K4, I only ever remember having one bad day. And the funny thing about that is that I wasn't even really making any money. I knew that money was going to come because I was generating new clients that were going to pay off over time, but the business model wasn't exactly paying me a whole bunch of money up front. And so I slowly grew for 3-4 years. I started getting a little bit more comfortable. I was, able to pay the bills. I was actually potentially almost in the plus, on a monthly basis after expenses, and kind of paying myself at least a rough salary that I wanted to live, which was very low. But my wife was making pretty good money, and so in November of 2019, I was out in Ontario. I was supposed to go and meet the people at Wealthsimple for the very first time. Wealthsimple for Advisors. There was a lot of us coming in for a seminar, and I was really excited to see it. I thought it would be great for me to actually get to know a little bit more about this company that was such a big part of kind of my success and my team as well, because I didn't have a team at the time, other than Tanya was helping me out. And so I was there, and on like the Wednesday that I was supposed to go there, the next day I got an email from them saying, no, we're not doing this anymore. Don't come in. Don't even bother. I didn't know why. It didn't say why. And come December, we got an email that said, Wealthsimple for Advisors is no longer going to be a thing. We are selling your guys' business, but we do not have a buyer yet. And so that was in December of 2019. And I was like, okay, well, that's pretty stressful. But at the time, they, were saying the right things. They were confident that they were going to find a good buyer. I knew a lot of the people that worked at Wealthsimple that were going to be transitioning to this new company. And so I was like, well, hopefully they can basically build an identical thing because it's got the same right pieces in place. They already know what they're doing. And basically, it's just, Wealthsimple 2.0, but only strictly for advisors, which would then make it better over time because their focus would be on helping advisors, with their client onboarding and all of these other things. So I was fairly confident that that would go smoothly. And there was my absolute first mistake. They found a buyer called Purpose Financial, which then started a company called Harness Wealth Management or something like that. And the decision is that they were going to move all of the assets to Harness Wealth Management on like September 16th of 2020. I don't know if any of you remember this, but in March of 2020, something weird happened and the world shut down. And all of a sudden, now this transition was seemingly a little bit more stressful because everybody was working from home. They weren't able to get together as a team. They probably didn't have all of their ducks in a row. They were trying to build a brand new website and then have a company that could basically move money over, probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars over, hundreds of advisors in one day. And the thing about me was that I said, well, this is a very, very stressful time. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to stress out my clients. So I thought, well, I'm not going to go and search for another company to potentially take place of Harness because I trust that Harness is going to get this right. And I'm not going to mess around with this. What I'm going to do is just let them do their thing. They have to get this right. They have to keep us happy. They have to keep our clients happy. Otherwise, this whole company they bought was going to be, basically worthless because we would just leave. And we're the ones that they needed. So I figured, they're going to try and make us happy. And was I ever dead wrong? At the same time, I had hired my first sort of associate, a guy I had worked with. I hired him in January. I was going to give him a 3-month probation, and he was going to help me write plans for new clients coming in. I said, I just want you to help me write plans, help me organize things, and I'll do the day-to-day face-to-face meetings and all of these other things. Well, he really didn't do that. He added some anxiety to my plate, I'll tell you that much. So it was pretty stressful during the COVID times. He wasn't doing very much, and I was paying him more money than he was making me. I mean, you always have to put an investment into people in the early part of their career to hope that they're going to pay off in the long term. He had brought over some of his older clients, so that was kind of helpful. However, when the switch happened is when basically all hell broke loose. So on September 16th, this was when the switch was supposed to happen. There was a number of emails sent out by me and Wealthsimple and Harness that all of these things were going to happen. And then we were going to have to repaper all of these accounts at a later time and get new KYCs for everybody. And so it was probably August where I stopped telling anybody to move any money into Wealthsimple because I knew that the money was moving. So I said, well, we can do this at a later date. We'll do this as soon as this transition has happened. And the transition happened. And with my air quotes, I'm saying that the transition did not happen for months, weeks and months. We couldn't see our clients' accounts. We couldn't see money. Some people were moving over. Some was like hidden in, the electronic whatever, anywhere out in the world. I had no idea where their money was. I couldn't tell them what they were invested in. I couldn't look at their accounts. I couldn't onboard a new client. This was extremely stressful. The majority of people had agreed to move their money from Wealthsimple to Harness to stay with me, with the exception of a few. I said, yeah, you're right. I mean, you probably do better just based on your situation to just keep it there and pay less money in fees. You probably don't need to pay me that much. Maybe come and talk to me at a later date or whatever. So most people moved over. But at that time, there was also like the stress of this new employee. He didn't really communicate with the new clients very well. I had no communication with his new clients. And so I said, well, I just can't have you on anymore. You are adding too much anxiety. And so he sort of broke the rules of our contract and took these clients with him wherever he went. I don't know where he went. It doesn't really matter. I didn't earn them. That's okay. But I did lose tens of thousands of dollars in, paying him for 7 months to make me no money. So that was stressful, but it was a relief to have that done. But there was no relief on the end of this Harness transition. There was a stretch of 8 months where I was doing nothing but losing clients. I couldn't add new money in for my existing clients. I couldn't add on a new client. Nobody from Harness was returning my emails. I didn't have anybody to talk to. As far as I knew, I was their biggest individual client that had moved over from Wealthsimple. I know that there was some other teams that had more assets under management at Wealthsimple, but there wasn't a bigger individual. I was one of the very first that started with Wealthsimple. At no point did anybody from Wealthsimple call me and say, thank you for what you've done and sort of the business we've done together over the 4 years. And eventually it came to December and I finally, emailed Harness. I said, if you guys don't figure this out right away, then I'm going to have to move all of the money that's here, because you guys are just not doing anything proper. And what I sort of found in those 3 months is what they were trying to build was, let's make money immediately. The investment into it was, let's make money right now. How can we get more money out of our clients rather than how can we get advisors to love this so that they'll bring on more? Maybe that's going to take 3, 4, 5 years. But nobody with these big money projects wants things to take that long. But in this business, the only way to build something like that is to have extreme patience. Otherwise, you are going to lose. And I'll talk about that when I talk about Wealthsimple on the other channel. Is they could have been the greatest financial company in the country without question if they had a level of patience that was made sense, but they didn't, and neither did Harness. So at this point, I was frantically searching for a new company. I couldn't, find one. I had talked to a bunch. A number of different companies in the space had reached out to me over the years. I just wasn't sure which one because I wanted something low cost, easy, good service. Luckily for me, around January, I found Modern Advisor. I found Naveed. We had a number of great conversations. I loved his thought process. I love how I can email him or call him any day that I want and talk to to the person that actually founded this company and runs this company, because that is something that I never had at Wealthsimple. But at this point in time, now in 2020, we've gone through COVID, the stress of COVID, and then we've had to transfer our assets to a company that I said was going to be good, that absolutely was not good. It is the worst company I've ever worked with by far. And then a few months later, I had to contact every single one of my clients and say, guess what? We actually have to move assets again because I don't like this company. And that was at the beginning of 2021. We're almost at 2022 or the end of 2022. And I am still literally dealing with a few headaches kind of on a weekly basis with that transition from Wealthsimple to Harness. I've had nothing but good things to say about Modern Advisors since that happened. But if I look at what had happened over the course of that time, I lost probably 18 months to 2 years worth of progress. And at the point in time where I thought I was about to make some money in 2020, so at the end of that school year, I told my wife that she could work part-time now. She could go down to half-time, make half of her salary, because I should be able to pay the bills and give her some time off and a break because she worked so hard as a teacher. However, not knowing that I was going to lose about 35% of my business to this absolute garbage transition and not be able to grow at the same time. Which was an absolute nightmare. And I had found Modern. Most people, that were happy with me and still trusted me said, okay, let's do it, let's go. But I did lose a number of clients that I certainly didn't want to. My fault maybe because I started getting extremely depressed. It was probably my worst bout of depression I've ever had. In my life, I've had 4 or 5 that have lasted a number of months where, I just really was struggling and I didn't know what to do. It was like I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't find a way out of it. And I was really struggling. I hadn't gotten a new client in a really long time and I didn't know what to do. And I was lying in bed one day in February. It was like the end of the hell that was that winter of 2021. Remember when it was like minus 35 for like 6 weeks straight and we were all masked up and you'd see people like dropping their kids off at school and everybody just looked dead inside. And I was the same way. I just there was really no happiness. It was so stressful. I was so anxious. I didn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden one morning, just a video of mine just started getting comments and it just kind of blew up. And it was crazy. Over the course of 2 weeks, I went from like 2,000 subscribers to like 12,000. That video in particular got a couple 100,000 views. I was making money off of YouTube a little bit during that month. There were some days where YouTube was actually paying me like $100 a day. And I was getting just an enormous amount of leads. But then that caused me my own stress because I was just now in a very serious bout of depression, trying to manage, 10 times the volume that I had ever had at any point in time. And I wasn't mentally prepared for it. We didn't have the team in place to prepare for it. We didn't have any of the things in place for me to actually capitalize on what had happened at that moment. But that was the moment where I had dipped and just absolutely got destroyed to a level that, it wasn't going to put me out of business, but it was really hurting everything. And how I said in the first 4 years, I only had one bad day at work. In that next year, I would say more than 50% of the days were bad days at work. It was easily my worst year in business. one of the most stressful years of my life in particular, because I wasn't even, very happy with what was going on anymore, because I was just stressed and anxious every day. Just worried about my clients. And then on top of it, worrying about the economy and COVID and all of these other things, and not knowing how to help people sort of understand what is happening. So, a very tough year for me. Thankfully, we got through that. I've spent the last year and a half, I guess, trying to pull together a team. It first started with Swan coming on one day and wanting to help me, and he's been a godsend to me because he keeps me in check. He takes care of a lot of things for me. Then, I found Chad, we had met a decade earlier, and he has been absolutely amazing. This guy is a fantastic financial planner. He gets better every single day. Came from the big money world, and now he had texted me on Friday and said, I was just talking to my wife on Friday. I said, I have the absolute best job in the industry in the country today, because every day is different. We get to help different people. We don't discriminate between the rich and the poor. We want to help anybody that wants help. We want to do it by providing, value for a fair price, which I'm going to talk about. And then I found Joaquin, struggling in his first 2 years of business. I said, you're a wonderful man. You're funny. You've got, your name in Edmonton. I love the Oilers. Let's bring you on. Let's get you trained up. Let's get you rocking, because when you're ready to go, you're going to just kill in this industry once I have spent some time teaching you all of these things and the way that we want to talk to people and attempt to help people. So, I was close to not ever wanting to grow at all. In that anxious times, I said, I can stick with this. I can make videos. I can try and make a little bit of money, and we'll be financially okay. And it would have been probably less stress. But the first moment that I had when I felt successful, right before that transition, when we moved into our new house, it was the most content moment of my life. It was 4 years after I had started taking the risk. I had felt like I had made it. It was where I wanted to be, and I have never been so content. And now my job is, I want more people to work with me and work for me, and to go from a place down here to a place where they can feel like they are that content and happy in what they're doing because they're helping. They're successful because they're helping people. And that's what I'm looking to do. So we're back on track. The Black Swan event was absolutely horrendous for me, but I'm very glad it happened in the long run, because it taught me more than any of the other things have ever taught me in this business. Taught me where I want to go, who I want to go with, and how I want to do it. And so I know a lot of you small business owners have gone through your own personal hell, especially through COVID times. There's mine. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out the new channel. And if you haven't, please like and subscribe. Thanks.